Okay, the last time we were together, we were actually in the same places: Matthew 16, Mark 8, and Luke 9, and we talked about Jesus being in Caesarea Philippi. Yes, the question of the disciples: who do people say that I am? Well, they think you're John the Baptist back from the dead, or they think you're Elijah or Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. And the question is, okay, that's what the people say, but who do you say that I am? And Peter rushes to the front and says, you are the Christ, you're the Messiah, you're the Son of the living God. And Jesus says to Peter, nice job, dude. Way to get it right. This was not revealed to you by man, but this was revealed to you by my Father in heaven. So Peter has this direct revelation from God about who Jesus is. It wasn't just Peter going, I've been noticing some things, and it kind of adds up this way. I think you're probably the Christ. There may have been some of that going on, but Jesus says God in heaven is the one who has revealed this truth to you. That's an important revelation, and it's going to lead right into sort of the next big movement in the Gospels. So we'll just read here. Which one should we read first? Probably, I'll just read Matthew's version. So Matthew 16, verse 21. Right after he says, "Don't tell anyone I'm the Messiah." Verse 21. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. Jesus turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. All right, so big declaration of who Jesus is by the disciples. They for really the first time are saying out loud what they have come to believe. You are the Messiah sent from God. He tells them not to go spread that around. It's not the right time for that yet. And then Jesus follows all that up with sort of the logical conclusion of that truth. If Jesus is the Christ, if he is the Messiah, if he is the one who has promised to come, here's what's going to happen. So Matthew, Mark, and Luke all have the same information in the same spot. Matthew's is just a little bit longer. He's got a couple of lines in there that Mark and Luke don't include. We'll talk about that in a moment. But this is really the first time in the Gospels where Jesus really outlines what is ahead for him. he has said some things in the past, like if you're looking in Matthew in chapter 9, chapter 10, and chapter 12, he said a few things that were maybe not super clear or super obvious about what his future was going to be like. But here in Matthew 16, he really kind of lays it out. What does he say is going to happen? He's going to go to Jerusalem and
suffer many things.
He's going to suffer at the hands of the leaders and
be killed.
And
raised up on the third day.
Raised on the third day. Okay, so this is the first time where Jesus has said, "Here's how it's going to unfold." Like if you look at Matthew 9:15, he alludes to his future. How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and then they will fast. That's not super clear. In Matthew 10:38, whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Well, he's not told anybody at that point that he's going to go die on a cross. So that's kind of it's a very unclear thing. Like, I wonder what Jesus meant by that. Take up the cross. Are we going to die with him? What's going on? And then one other in Matthew 12. We talked about this just a couple weeks ago. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a huge fish. Sorry, that's verse 40. So the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. We said it, but there's not really any explanation. There's no clarification about what he means, and the disciples are not swift enough to say, "We don't understand. Would you please tell us what this means?"
What was the first?
Matthew
verse?
9:15,
Okay.
Matthew 10:38, and then Matthew 12:40. So, but this is the first time, and he says, "I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be raised on the third day." This is the first time that he has discussed it openly with his disciples. And so what the text tells us is that, like in Mark's verse 8:31, he began to teach them. What that means is that from that point on, he's pointing it out and pointing it out and pointing it out. This is not just a one-time deal, but this really is the beginning of Jesus saying, "We're in the last year together, boys. Here's what's going to have to happen. I don't want you to be surprised. I don't want you to be scared. I don't want you to be caught off guard. Here's what's going to happen. Jerusalem, suffering, killed, raised." That's how it's going to have to happen. Jesus says he's going to have to suffer many things. He must suffer many things. And it's not because Jesus really wants to. He doesn't want to suffer. But that's what the Father's will is. That the Son is coming to Jerusalem. He will have to go through these things. He will have to be the suffering servant. It's one of the things that the Old Testament talks about when someone looks forward to the Messiah, that he is the suffering servant. He's going to have to go through these things at the hands of the leaders. And Mark also adds, he's going to suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. That rejection is really a key idea throughout all of the Bible. Back in Psalm 118, verse 22, there's a reference there that the stone that the builders rejected has become the capstone. They didn't feel like it was good enough to build on, but God has made it now the peak, the pinnacle, the last essential piece of everything. The builders rejected it, but God had other plans for it. Peter talks about the same thing over in his letter, the first letter, 1 Peter chapter 2. Two verses in that chapter have that same kind of idea. Peter says, as you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans, but chosen by God and precious to him. And then in verse 7, he says, to you who believe, this stone is precious, but to those who do not believe, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Okay? Jesus knows that not everybody who hears about him, not everybody who sees him, not even everybody who is healed by him is going to accept him. That he will be rejected. And that's really kind of a part of free will. I can either take it or I cannot take it. When you go to Handel's ice cream shop, they don't make you take black cherry. You should though, because it's amazing. You have the choice to choose this or some other flavor, or not to have any at all. You can reject what is offered. That is the same with Jesus. You can either choose to believe in him, to trust him with your life and follow him, or you say, that is not for me, I don't want anything to do with it. That is such an important idea in Scripture. You can either believe it or not. God is not going to make you take it. As we were talking about my kids early on, a little bit ago, I can really only do so much. As a football coach this season, man, was that very obvious. Because we had 2/3 of the same kids as last year. We had all the same coaching staff. Last year, we were the mini bowl champs. This year, we barely even scored. They had all the right training. They had the same talent or more. They had all the tools. And the biggest frustration is, I can't make you want this. I can't make you behave this way. I can't make you choose this. I wish that I could, because I would choose that you would not lose. But I can't play the game for you. And the same is true when it comes to our relationship with God. As much as he loves us, he's given us his word so we can understand him and see what it is that he wants from us. But he won't make us take it. Who is going to bring about Jesus' suffering? What does the text tell us?
Chief priests, elders, and scribes.
Chief priests, elders, and scribes. It may be a little different in your translation. The elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, or something like that. So let's talk about who those people are. Elders. The word that is used there, very technical word, means old men. In most cultures in the world, the oldest people in the village or in the community are seen as being the wise ones. They're the ones to whom major decisions fall. That's certainly true in the people of Jesus' time, that the old Jewish men, the ones who had been around forever, were the members of the big council, the Sanhedrin. They're the ones who made decisions because they had experienced much. They had sort of what's the right word? The institutional memory of what was going on. Occasionally when people are new to the congregation and get involved, they want to do this thing and do that thing, and somebody has the institutional memory to say, we did something just like that once, and it was really great. You're right, we should do that again. Or, we tried that. That was a dismal failure. We've done it multiple times. It's never worked. Or, here's why we don't do this. that sort of be in one place for a long time, you've got some collected experience and wisdom. So these older men, part of the council, are ones who are going to bring about suffering for Jesus. The next group that's talked about are the chief priests. So because you've been with me for a while and we've talked about priests and sacrifices, I hope that you understand that for the people of Israel, there was one man, the high priest, who was the mediator between the people and God. He would go to the tabernacle, or later on into the temple. He would enter into the Holy of Holies. He would sprinkle the blood of the sacrifice there and make atonement for all the people. He would bring about forgiveness for Israel. He's the mediator, the one who speaks to God for the people and the one who speaks to the people for God. That was based on, well, you tell me. How did you get to be the high priest? What was necessary?
You had to be a Levite.
You had to be a Levite, true, from the tribe of Levi. You had to be one of the, in that tribe. What else? To be the high priest. Who else did you have to be a descendant of? Who was the first high priest? Well, okay. Who's the first high priest that God would have called the high priest? Moses' brother Aaron. Okay. Moses was the prime minister. Aaron is the high priest. He was the first one who went in to see the Ark of the Covenant. He was the first one to make sacrifices. Now, you had to be a Levite. You had to be from Aaron's line to become the high priest. And that was a position potentially that you would have for all of your life, or until you were incapable of serving. By the time of Jesus, it had sort of changed a little bit, that while it was still a religious post, there was a lot of politics involved. And so the Roman leadership would say, well, this guy here, he meets all of the Jews' requirements, and he also is willing to work with us. So we're putting him in as the high priest. And the first minute that he says or does something that we don't like, he's out, we're putting somebody else in. So even though it is still a Jewish man who is from the tribe of Levi, who is a descendant of Aaron, it's now, there's lobbying going on and currying favor and politicking to make sure that you've got somebody who's not going to incite the people to rebel against Rome. We know that during the time of Jesus, that there are a couple of men who are referred to as being the high priest. There's Annas and Caiaphas by the time we get to the end of the gospel. One was serving as the high priest, and the other one had served as the high priest. So this group of chief priests is made up of not just the one man who is serving in that role, but anybody else who has served as the high priest in one of these political sort of appointments. There was something in the commentary that over a span of like 60 years that 23 different men held the position or something like that. So there was a lot of turnover. So clearly they are the chief singular, the high priest would be the singular religious leader of the people. And then you've also got scribes or teachers of the law or experts in the law, lawyers, depending on which translation you have. The Greek word is just as letters. They're the letter guys, the letter of the law guys. This third group are men who have spent their lives studying Moses' law. They know it inside out, upside down, frontwards and backwards. They know it all. And so they're the legal experts. If there is a question, they're the ones who sit on the witness stand and say, oh yeah, the law says this, but it also says this, so the best application is that. I guess in our country, we would call them like constitutional experts. You know, they know the law inside and out. They know everything about it. If there's a question, we go to them. So you've got the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. All of the religious hierarchy, the leaders of the people, recognized, respected, submitted to. They're the ones who are going to, first of all, reject Jesus as the Messiah, but also to cause him to suffer. Jesus knows and points out that he is going to be killed off by the leaders. And that he'll be out of their way. The language that he uses really kind of has that flavor, that he's not just being killed, but he's being killed off. There's kind of a difference there, right? It's one thing to kill somebody in a show. It's another one to kill them off. We're writing them out of the story. We're getting them out of the way. It's somebody we don't like, so we're killing them off. Frank Burns goes crazy. Somebody's hard to work with on the cast of MASH. They want bigger paychecks, so they're having a helicopter crash. We're just getting rid of them. We're killing them off. And Jesus says that they are killing me off to get me out of their way. I won't be a problem for them. Now, that's what Jesus says. Going to Jerusalem, suffer at the hands of the leadership. I'm going to be killed and raised on the third day. They've just said, Jesus, you're the Messiah, the Christ of God. Now he said, I'm going to die. How does that make you feel? Just three.
Say what?
Leaning in a little bit. What did you just say? Oh, no, that's not how this is supposed to work. When the Messiah comes, he's riding in on the white horse. He's going to throw out the Romans. We're going to establish the throne of David. It's going to be forever. Whoa, what are you talking about, Jesus? And that's really kind of what Peter does. That is not going to happen, Lord. That is, God forbid it. May that never be. How could Jesus say something so sad and so dismal and so upsetting as this? My question is, do the disciples really understand what it is that Jesus has said? At least probably to some degree. Certainly, in about a year, as they look back on this conversation, after his death and resurrection, they'll go, oh yeah, I remember all that now. That makes perfect sense now. I didn't know what he's talking about then.
Hindsight is 2020.
So Peter goes after Jesus, and his words are, the NIV doesn't really give it much justice here, but what he says is essentially something like, God forbid it. He's really after Jesus. This isn't just, oh no, you're kidding me. This is, no. That's the wrong thing. May that never come to pass. Peter's friend, Peter's teacher, Peter's Messiah is not going to go through any of that while he is around. He is intensely loyal, not always very bright, but intensely loyal to Jesus at this point. And what is Jesus' response?
Get behind me, Satan.
Get behind me, Satan. Some comedian or some TV show or something had that line with the words, and don't push. Get behind me, Satan, and don't push. I automatically hear that when I see this line. Get behind me, Satan. I don't believe that Jesus is calling Peter the devil. But Peter is acting a lot like God's enemy. Okay, Jesus has just said, if you believe I'm the Messiah, which you've done correctly, here's what my purpose and plan is. And Peter has said, oh no, we're not letting that happen. That's the wrong plan. That's exactly what the adversary, Satan, that's what that word means. Satan means adversary or enemy. That's what he has done all along. When Jesus was in the wilderness, the temptation was that Jesus could get what he wanted without having to do everything that God laid out. Tell you what, if you will bow down and worship me, I will give you all the kingdoms on earth. That's the deal. I'm going to give you everything you want. I will put you in as the king of the entire planet. All you have to do is this one thing. You can bypass God's plan. You can bypass all this pain and suffering. You can get through everything, and you can have it easy. That's what Peter wants to have happen as well. Power without pain. And Jesus says, get behind me. You're a stumbling block. You don't have your mind on God's things. You have your mind on man's things. You're thinking about this from a human perspective. I know you love me and you don't want me to die. But that's not what God's plan is. So, you are a stumbling block. That's kind of an interesting thing that Jesus says to Peter. You're a stumbling block to me. The Greek word for a stumbling block is scandalon, where we get the word scandal. And a scandalon is it's the trigger in a trap or a snare. So it's the little plate on the bear trap. It's the stick that you bump that flings you up into the air at the end of the rope, or it's the one little stone that you stand on that makes the pit open up underneath you. It's what makes you trapped. It's what gets you caught. Jesus is saying that Peter's comments could trap him, that he, whether Peter knows it or not, he is also tempting Jesus to do something contrary to God's will. Jerusalem, suffering, death, resurrection. No, don't do that. Don't do that at all. Let's do something else. Well, this is God's will. This is God's plan. And you're offering me something besides that. Rejecting God's plan is always a bad idea. It's always wrong. Now, the fun thing is that Peter, in his letter later on, as an old man, will use this same word about Jesus. He says that Jesus is a stumbling block to others. And that actually comes around, I believe it's a reference to something that is written back in the book of Isaiah. In Isaiah chapter 8, verses 14 and 15. It says, "He will be a holy place for both Israel and Judah. He will be a stone that causes people to stumble and a rock that makes them fall. And for the people of Jerusalem, he will be a trap and a snare. Many of them will stumble. They will fall and be broken. They will snared and be captured." Okay? Isaiah is written 700 years before Jesus is born. Jesus knows about being a stumbling block. Peter later on refers to Jesus in that same way. That the truth about Jesus is going to cause some people in Jerusalem to be stuck. They're going to get caught. They're going to be trapped by their own decisions. Jesus's person, his character, his career, they were also contrary to the expectations that the people had about the Messiah, that those people would reject him and through their own stubborn refusal would wreck and ruin their salvation. It's not Jesus who caused them to fall. It was their reaction to what Jesus revealed. Again, Isaiah predicted that Jesus would be the kind of person that he turns out to be 700 years before he was born. A stumbling block, a trap, a trigger for many. So Jesus, without any intention or without any desire or effort to do so, draws people into error. They're trapped, not because of who Jesus is, but because of how they respond to who Jesus is. Okay. That's a lot of me talking in a row. What do you think? You have a question or a comment?
I do.
All right. Thanks, Robert. What do you got?
So, when Satan was tempting Jesus, offered him the whole world, what made him think he had the power, or did he have the power to do that? As a side note, I know.
I believe Satan has always been pretty proud of himself.
So there's nothing that would lead that direction.
I would say he doesn't really have any actual authority to give that. He may have believed that he did. He is occasionally referred to as something like the prince of the power of the air or the dark ruler of this world. So it is his domain, and outside of God, he's probably the most powerful being, but it would be second to Jesus. Anybody else?
So he has it now, but it's going to change.
Yes. Satan has some control now. It will certainly change. He is a junkyard dog on a leash at this point. You can only get hurt by him if you get too close. All right. Well, let's roll on then. So in the next paragraph, whether you're in Matthew or Mark or Luke, all three accounts are very similar. I have Luke's text right here, Luke 9:23. "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. Okay, so I know I've preached on this passage a few times in the last 30-some years. I know you probably have heard messages about it as well. The cost of discipleship. What does Jesus say that his followers have to do? So I've written down three verbs: follow, deny, and confess. Follow, deny, and confess. Jesus says that whoever wants to be his disciple must deny themselves and follow. A person can only follow Jesus after they have made the very radical decision to deny themselves. Jesus literally says, whoever wants to come after me. He doesn't say it in so many words, whoever wants to be my disciple. It's whoever wants to come after me. Following, to cling to someone, to conform to their example. Literally, the word means to walk along the same road together. Okay, if I'm going to walk over to the office, you would walk right alongside with me until we got to where we were going. That's what it means, to follow the same path, to walk the same path together. If you want to come after Jesus, if you want to walk the same path, if you want to be with him, then you have to deny self. Now, Jesus is not saying what is sometimes taught and preached about denying yourself. Jesus is not saying you should not have ice cream, or you should not buy that pair of shoes, or you should not give in to every whim and desire. There may be some truth to that, because if you're really following Jesus, some of those things don't matter to you anymore. But this is not just about denying yourself the things that you want. It's not, because I'm a follower of Jesus, I'm not going to buy any new jeans. That's not what this is about. Okay? Denying yourself is more about your desires and your will. If I'm following Jesus, then I'm not going to choose something that is different than what his will is. If I'm following him and he says we're going straight ahead, I'm not going to say, well, you know what I'd really like to do? I'd really like to pull off over here for a little while and do this thing, but I'll come back. That is not denying self. That is giving in to self. Following Jesus means you understand that Christ Jesus has a right to your life. He has paid for it with his own life. And so your life belongs to him. You're not your own anymore. You don't get to just do whatever you want. You have to really lose sight of your own self, your own interests, and put God and his kingdom first. It's not that you don't matter anymore, because you do matter, but you are intentionally choosing what God has laid out for you. What will keep me closest to Jesus? In this thing that's in front of me, is there a way that this could take me away from following Jesus? Could it become a distraction? Could it become the most important thing to me? Is it going to get in the way? Because if that's the case, then I'm not going to do that. I'm going to deny myself that thing, that course of action. And the last verb there is about confessing, acknowledging Jesus, not being ashamed to say that you know him, that you identify yourself with him. You recognize that you live for his sake and not for your own sake. He is my Lord and Master. He is my Savior. He is the director of my life. I'm with him. The question would be, like, is that true all the time? Or is that true just when it is convenient and safe? What if there's a consequence to saying that you're following Jesus? Somebody's gonna hurt you or take something from you. There is another word in there in Luke's text, and it's definitely in Luke. That is not in Mark. That's not in Matthew. There's one word, daily. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. In order for somebody to follow Jesus, it is not necessarily a prerequisite that a person takes up their cross to follow Jesus. They don't have to do that first in order to follow him. But what Luke tells us is that the expectation is that it is a regular occurrence in life, that it is an everyday occurrence. It is the way of life. Now, you have to think about the people who are hearing Jesus talk about this in the first century. They knew what crucifixion was. They know about crosses. They have seen dozens, hundreds of people who have died on a cross. The belief, the common understanding is that usually along the highways, either going into or out of the city, that's where they would execute criminals on crosses to serve as a warning to people, like, if this is what you do, this is what's going to happen. If you break the law, if you rebel, if you don't conform, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to die just like one of these people on the cross. The people of Jesus' time knew that anybody who was going to be crucified was going to have to carry at least part of the cross, usually the cross piece, the horizontal piece. They would have to carry that to the place where they were going to die. And people who saw that knew, oh, I know what's happening to that guy. He's never coming back. Wave goodbye, because you'll never see him again. Because people didn't come back from crucifixion. There was no stay of execution once they got there. If you were carrying the cross, you were a dead man walking. And so Jesus says, if you want to be my disciple, you have to deny yourself, put God's kingdom first, and take up your cross every day. You are choosing to die every day. You're not going to come back from that. Trying to escape that is to try to run away from Jesus, which is the next thing that he'll talk about. We die to the sake of self, and we live for the sake of Christ every single day. It is a decision like every other one we make. I'm going to get up this morning and I'm going to exercise. A decision I make every day. I'm going to get up and I'm going to eat right. I make that decision every day. It's not something that I make a decision once and now I'm good. Well, we probably all made that decision many times. I'm going to stop eating garbage. I'm I'm going to take better care of myself from here on out. But here on out doesn't really work. Because we get busy. Mowers. We get busy, we get distracted, we're tired, we're hungry, we feel like we deserve a break. And so we don't do it. But if we have this understanding that every morning when I open my eyes, I will make this decision, I'm choosing this for the rest of my day, then it works. The same is true with Jesus. We don't just make a decision once at a revival meeting or at the end of a church service or at church camp and say, I'm a Christian from here on out. I'm going to live for Jesus from here on out. It's a decision we have to make over and over again, at least every morning, and probably, for being honest, multiple times through the day. If I'm going to live for Jesus, that means I can't go over here. If I'm going to live for Jesus, I can't read this. If I'm going to live for Jesus, I won't say that. If I'm going to live for Jesus, I'm not going to eat this. It really is about 1,000 small decisions. All these little baby steps of carrying the cross every single day. What do you think? How much fun is that? Oh, I'm so bashful today. Don't you think that probably most of us prefer the one and done deal?
That's human nature.
I prayed this prayer, I did this thing, I went into the water, I'm a Christian, I don't have to think about it anymore. It's really not, that is way too easy, I think. Because it doesn't really require any regular thought or effort. You just, well, I did it once and now I'm done. What Jesus says is you got to take up the cross every single day. You pick it up, you strap it on, and you carry it all day long. If you're not doing that every day, then you really are sort of running away from what Jesus has laid out. What he has said is the path. Look at whose verse is it? 20 Matthew 16:24. Again, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? What can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Jesus teaches here that if you are trying to hang on to your life the way that it is, the way that you like it, if you're gripping it with everything that you can, you really end up losing the thing that matters most. If you are grabbing all of the gusto in this life that you can, holding on tight, trying to squeeze every last drop of life out of it without any kind of thought towards your eternal soul and the salvation that God offers, then you're going to miss out on that salvation. But if you live with the understanding that your eternal soul is healthy, that you're caring for it, that you are preparing yourself for eternity, then you have the ability to get through the rest of life because you've focused on the thing that is most important, and not something that is just very present. It is putting off the convenient and the easy for something that is maybe a little more distant and sometimes kind of inconceivable. Most of us want right now what's right in front of us. Hey, it's a pumpkin roll. It's carrot cake, cheesecake. It's a chocolate fountain. I want this because it's right here in front of me. Do I want to be healthy? Do I want to not have diabetes? Do I want to not kill my pancreas? Well, no, but this is right here, and it is so good. Right, Dawn?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so good, and we really want it. And we'll do it, and we will hurt ourselves with that. We're not thinking about what will come. We're thinking about what is right here and right now. Jesus says don't do that. Don't hold on so tight to everyday life that you forfeit your eternal soul or salvation. Matthew, Mark, and Luke use different words for your life. Sometimes it's your soul or your psyche. It's talking about the eternal part of you, the part that's going to last forever. Don't make a temporary decision without considering the eternal impacts, which is one of the reasons why your preacher does not have a tattoo. I have not figured out yet what I'd like to have on my body for all the rest of my life, because I know it's not a 1 month deal. It's there forever. Okay. When I was buying new furniture as a bachelor, it took me 2 years to buy a couch because I was afraid I was going to buy the wrong one. My mom got so tired of going furniture shopping with me. It's like, just buy a dumb couch. Get it over with. I don't want to get the wrong one. This is a big decision. I don't want to buy a new couch every year and a half. I want to buy one that's going to last a long time, that I'm going to like for a long time. That's kind of the idea Jesus has got here. If you don't take the kernel of corn and plant it in the ground, you will miss out on the harvest of corn later on. But I love this kernel. I'm going to hang on to it. It's so special and precious to me. You know who gave me this kernel? Oh man, it was a great memory. Yeah, but you're never going to have more corn unless you put it in the ground. Give up the world and gain yourself. If you cling to the world to the point of being ashamed of Jesus, He's going to respond just the same way. He will be ashamed of you. So if I have to put it in any other language, I would say, stop making yourself the center of the universe. God has to be the center of your life. I think that this is this whole section right here is the most obvious in the face of persecution. When a person is being persecuted for their faith, remaining true to Jesus may cost them their very life. We've seen videos over the last 25 years of Christians who were executed by enemies of Jesus just because they wouldn't recant their faith. They wouldn't let go of Jesus, and so they died. But that person is assured of eternal life and salvation. If you're pressed and you say, well, yeah, you're right, I don't actually believe in that, and I don't have a relationship with Christ, I don't know Him, and I don't want Him, you may save your physical life, but you will have turned your back on the life that was waiting for you. Your salvation would be lost. And Jesus asks, essentially, what is your eternal life worth? What's your soul worth? What would you trade for it? Would you rather have the whole world? Would you rather have even just a great big chunk of the world? Or would you rather have a healthy soul and the promise of eternity? Because if you give up your soul, if you give up your salvation, you cannot buy it back with anything. Even if you have everything in the whole wide world, you cannot buy it back. Because once you've rejected it, it's gone. It is not easy to be a follower of Jesus. It is not convenient to be a follower of Jesus. It requires a daily commitment and a willingness to kill off your own self so you can pick up the life that he has for you. Tell me what you're thinking about in between the blowers.
I'm never gonna make it.
Never gonna make it.
Never gonna make it. I'll probably be right here for eternity. It's hard.
Somehow I
It's sort of like the Staples commercials. You know, it's simple, but it's not easy. It is a pretty simple thing. Jesus doesn't make us jump through, 1,000 hoops to get it right. It's really just like right here. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and walk with me. That's what you got to do. And sometimes those are the very most difficult steps to take. Because I don't want to deny myself. I want what I want. And when do I want it? Right now.
10 minutes ago.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to put it off. My desires are the most important thing. We're all like 10-year-olds. We all, we got no patience. We don't have the ability to put anything off. We just want it right now. I'm really sick of this chair. I'm just going to go to RC Willey and buy a new chair right now. You have any money saved up for it? Well, no. Are you going to pay extra for it over time? Absolutely. But I want this chair right now. I want these new shoes. You know what I really like? I'd really love to have a new stove. How about a Harley? I deserve a Harley. I've been schlepping kids to school for the last 18 years. I ought to have something that makes me happy every day. So I deserve it, and so I'm going to go get it. Is a motorcycle or a stove or a pair of shoes or a new furniture suit, is that all ungodly? No. But if it becomes the most important thing, if we are incapable of diverting, being distracted, then it has become the most important thing. And it's not just about buying stuff either. It's relationships, physical health, and all kinds of other things can become the most important thing to us. Probably if there's anything that I wish we'll talk about tattoo. I don't want it tattooed on my arm because I can always wear a sleeve and not see it. But if there was a way to tattoo it on the inside of my eyes, so it's always like right there in the windshield, I can always see those words, I would probably do that right here. Take up your cross daily, deny yourself, follow me. I really feel like this really is the heart of what Jesus wants us to do. And some of you are your own worst critics, just like me. Okay, you're not awful people. You're not mean-spirited, selfish, horrible, nasty folks. But we all need to be reminded constantly, this is what it really boils down to with Jesus. If you want to come after me, if you really want to be my disciple, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. Kingdom first, all the way to death. All the time.
But we can't all be like you, James.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad, because
So should the rest of us throw in the towel?
no,
Because we can't.
no,
Oh, my gosh.
many of you are way farther down the road on this than I am.
Should,
Remember,
I
Terry,
pray yesterday, or
remember, I'm just a young pup. I'm still wet behind the ears.
Huh. Yeah, it's, never mind.
No, you started it. You gotta finish it.
Oh, she started it.
Feel that buzz?
Yeah.
But it's a lot tougher for a lot of us than it is you and I. You know what I mean? At least the way I see it.
Oh, Terry.
Yeah, it's your
I
job.
wish that was true.
It's your job. You're surrounded by it every day. You're in constant. I'm making excuses, so I'm not saying anymore.
Cole, and talking about his future, there are a lot of things that Cole really loves. He really loves cars so much, and he has a car brain. He knows everything about everything on every car ever. Well, why don't you have that job? And his answer is, well, I don't want my job to be something that I love because I'm afraid that I will not love it anymore.
Been there.
And I will say, Brother Terrence, that it would be kind of the same thing for me. Yeah, I'm in it all the time, and the great danger in it is becoming deaf to it, or complacent, or disinterested, or just kind of burnt out. I am nothing special spiritually. I am nothing special when it comes to holiness and purity and righteousness. And if anybody has James up on some kind of pedestal super close to God, they should really stop doing that, because I very often feel like in a room full of folks that I'm the farthest one. So,
Well,
but it's not a competition.
I bet we all feel that way at times,
I think that's probably true.
but you know how blessed are we to have the chance to do that?
The fact that Jesus even says to us, hey, come over here, follow me. I mean, that is like the greatest and the best thing ever. We don't have to like show him a resume and prove to him that we've got any kind of worth or value. He takes everybody, even schlubs like me, and says, hey, I've got a plan. Come with me on this plan. That's the best part. Because I hope you don't go away from this passage going, well, I do suck as a human. I'm horrible at this.
And keep
And-
in mind, in those 3 days, Peter ran and hid.
Yeah, Jesus is not, he is not beating us up about that. Peter he's the great example for us. I'm with you. Jesus, you are the Messiah, the Christ of God. I will die with you. I don't know who he is. Peter, do you really love me? You know I love you. Feed my sheep. Peter's the example of walking away, making stupid decisions, saying stupid things, and Jesus still says, come back. Come back over here. It's forgiven. Come back.
yeah. Yeah. I guess we look at it.
We would have to.
See, I see you in heaven.
That's good.
Up there kind of at the top. Now, I just pray, when I pray, Lord, I'll take one of the lowest jobs you've got. I mean, if you need somebody to clean the restrooms, I'm here. Just, I see you up there, James, sitting at the right hand of God and saying, geez, boy, how did you let that guy in? You know, it's
Hey, hand me a broom and a mop, would you? Well, we will pick up from here next time. I guess that's Halloween. Please don't come in costume. Not a problem. But if you happen to have some candy corn, feel free to bring that along with you.
we just talking about your pancreas. Come on.
I believe he's given up. All right. Well, we'll pick up here with the transfiguration of Jesus when he is changed in appearance right before the disciples' eyes. Okay. Very good. Hey, if you happen to be watching this, feel free to make a comment. Dawn made a comment, and it was really helpful. Watch it on YouTube. Make a comment there. Thanks. Bye.